The de Havilland C. Vixen, officially designated as the DH.110C Vixen, stands as one of the most distinctive, controversial, and ultimately tragic aircraft in British post-war naval aviation history, representing the United Kingdom's determined, yet often frustrated attempt to preserve technological sovereignty in carrier-based fighter design during the intense early decades of the Cold War, when the Royal Navy faced the daunting prospect of defending its fleets against rapidly advancing Soviet maritime strike forces, including long-range turboprop bombers like the Tupolev Tu-95 Bear and their jet escorts that could threaten task groups far from home waters. Conceived in the late 1940s as jet propulsion matured and propeller-driven fighters became obsolete, the C. Vixen evolved from de Havilland's successful twin-boom family, beginning with the Vampire, the world's second operational jet fighter after the German Me-262, and continuing through the Venom, both of which proved reliable, nimble, and structurally sound, but clearly limited in speed, range, and all-weather capability against emerging threats. The Admiralty, recognizing that straight-wing jets such as the C. Vampire and C. Venom would soon be outclassed, issued requirements for a modern fleet defense interceptor possessing high subsonic or near-transonic performance, advanced airborne interception radar for night and adverse weather operations, extended endurance for combat air patrols over vast ocean areas, missile armament to engage targets beyond visual range, and full compatibility with the angled deck carriers then entering service, including the Centaur-class, Audacious-class, and later the modernized Illustrious-class vessels. De Havilland responded with the DH.110 project, an ambitious swept-wing enlargement of the twin-boom configuration featuring a central fuselage pod housing the two crew members, the pilot forward and to the left under a clear bubble canopy for excellent deck visibility, and the radar observer buried to the right and slightly aft in a windowless compartment optimized for glare-free radar scope reading. Powered initially by twin de Havilland Ghost engines, but soon upgraded to the far more potent Rolls-Royce Avon turbojets, each delivering approximately 11,230 pounds of thrust in afterburning configuration and later marks, allowing the aircraft to reach speeds approaching Mach 0.95 at altitude, with respectable climb performance and reasonable range when fitted with external tanks. Early enthusiasm for the design was considerable, with prototype orders placed for both Royal Navy and Royal Air Force evaluation, as the aircraft was envisioned fulfilling multiple roles, including naval all-weather fighter, long-range land-based interceptor, naval night fighter, and even limited strike platform. But fiscal constraints, performance doubts, and inter-service rivalry quickly tempered expectations, leading the Navy to select the cheaper, quicker-to-produce C. Venom as an interim solution, and the RAF to drastically reduce its prototype commitment in favor of the competing Gloucester Javelin, which promised simpler construction and potentially lower risk. Despite these setbacks, de Havilland continued development largely at private expense, confident that the DH.110's superior aerodynamics, radar integration, and missile focus would ultimately secure production contracts. The first prototype, WG-236, made its maiden flight from Hatfield on September 26, 1951, piloted by the renowned test pilot John Cunningham, a decorated World War II night fighter ace whose experience with radar-equipped Beaufighters and Mosquitoes made him ideally suited to evaluate the new type, and initial flight testing progressed remarkably well, with the aircraft demonstrating excellent handling, transonic stability, and the ability to exceed the speed of sound in shallow dives or even level flight under optimal conditions, marking it as one of the earliest British jets to achieve reliable supersonic performance. That promising trajectory ended abruptly and tragically on September 6, 1952, during the prestigious Farnborough Air Show, when the prototype, while performing a high-speed, low-level rolling pull-up intended to showcase its sonic boom capabilities, disintegrated in mid-air at over 650 miles per hour due to catastrophic aeroelastic flutter and structural failure originating in the wing leading edges, which buckled under dynamic loads far exceeding those encountered by its slower straight wing predecessors, the Vampire and Venom, causing the entire airframe to break apart violently, with the cockpit section, wings, and one engine separating and plummeting into the crowded spectator enclosure, killing 31 people, including pilot John Derry and observer Tony Richards, and injuring more than 60 others in what remains one of the most devastating accidents in airshow history. The subsequent investigation identified inadequate internal reinforcement and insufficient stiffness in the wing leading-edge structure as the root cause, prompting immediate grounding of the surviving second prototype, sweeping revisions to British air display safety regulations that prevented fatal spectator casualties at UK air shows for more than 6 decades, and a comprehensive redesign program for the DH.110 itself. Modifications included substantially strengthened leading edges, an all-moving stabilator tailplane for improved pitch authority and control at high speeds, revised aerodynamic contours to suppress flutter tendencies, additional internal bracing, and other safety enhancements that restored structural confidence, but inevitably compromised peak performance, eliminating reliable level flight, supersonic capability, and restricting the aircraft to approximately Mach 0.95 in dives before control lockup, or Buffet said, enforcing a re-evaluation of its role. The Royal Air Force, already skeptical of the design's complexity and cost, abandoned it entirely in favor of the Javelin, while the Royal Navy, recognizing the persistent need for a capable all-weather fleet defender in the face of growing Soviet maritime aviation threats, pressed forward, and in 1955 placed an order for a fully navalized variant, officially named the Sea Vixen. Navalization involved extensive changes, including hydraulically actuated power-folding wings to reduce hangar footprint, strengthen long-stroke, main undercarriage legs with catapult launch spools, and arrestor hook provision, steerable nose wheel, improved high-lift devices, such as larger flaps and leading-edge slats for slower approach speeds, and fuselage reinforcements to withstand the violent decelerations of arrested landings. The asymmetric cockpit layout was retained and refined, with the pilot enjoying superb forward, downward, and side visibility essential for precise carrier approaches, while the radar observer's buried coal-hole position, though ergonomically challenging and notoriously difficult for emergency escape, provided ideal conditions for operating the large radar scopes without distracting glare from side windows, earning the aircraft the grim nicknames Flying Coffin and Widowmaker among some aircrew. Because of the observer's limited bailout options, particularly in low-level emergencies, fires, ditching scenarios, or situations where the pilot ejected first. The Sea Vixen entered frontline service as the FAW.1 fighter all-weather Mark I in July 1959, initially equipping 892 Naval Air Squadron at Renazio-Volton, with production eventually totaling around 145 airframes, including prototypes built first at Christchurch and later at Hardin following de Havilland's merger into Hawkers Italy in 1960. It pioneered several important milestones for the Fleet Air Arm, including becoming the first British swept-wing carrier fighter, the first jet designed and built without any internal gun armament, relying instead on 4 de Havilland Firestreak infrared-guided air-to-air missiles as primary weapons, supplemented by retractable microcell 2-inch rocket packs and limited bomb carriage for ground attack, and the first integrated missile plus radar weapons system specifically tailored for all-weather fleet defense from carrier decks. Armament and capability evolved significantly with the introduction of the FAW.2 variant in the mid-1960s, which incorporated a stretched rear fuselage and enlarged tail booms, accommodating additional internal fuel, greater avionics capacity, and compatibility with the more advanced Red Top missile, offering improved all-aspect infrared or semi-active radar homing performance together, with options for AGM, 12 bullpup television-guided air-to-ground missiles, SNEB, 68mm rocket pods, and up to 4,000 pounds of conventional bombs in certain configurations, with 29 new-build FAW.2 airframes produced and 67 FAW.1s converted to the improved standard, thereby extending useful range, loiter time, and combat flexibility for extended oceanic patrols. In operational service, the Sea Vixen performed creditably in several Cold War flashpoints, without suffering major air-to-air combat losses, most notably during the July 1961 Kuwait crisis, when aircraft launched from HMS Centaur conducted deterrent combat air patrols over the Persian Gulf using their AI.18 radar to detect, track, and shadow potential Iraqi MiG-17 intruders, thereby helping to dissuade invasion without firing a shot, and later supporting British forces during the Aden emergency Yemen conflicts and Tanganyika operations, where they flew reconnaissance missions, rocket strikes, flare illumination attacks under the glowworm call sign, and barrier combat air patrols, providing essential air cover for ground troops and helicopters during withdrawal phases. Despite these successes, the type acquired a dark reputation due to an exceptionally high non-combat accident rate, with 55 of the approximately 145 built lost in various incidents, representing nearly 38% attrition, and claiming around 51 aircrew lives, with more than half of those accidents proving fatal to both pilot and observer. Principal causes included asymmetric thrust following single-engine failure, particularly dangerous during low-speed final approaches, to pitching carrier decks, control difficulties in slow-flight configurations, especially with asymmetric flap or slat deployment, structural fatigue accumulated from repeated high-G arrested landings, carrier mishaps such as bolters, barrier engagements, deck overruns, or hook skip bounces, and the inherent hazards of the observer's escape path, which frequently resulted in fatalities even when the pilot survived ejection. Night deck operations, flare-dropping missions, and hot weather carrier qualifications further increased risk, leading to multiple write-offs and reinforcing the aircraft's unfortunate Widowmaker moniker. By the late 1960s, shrinking defense budgets, the strategic withdrawal from east of Suez, commitments, retirement of large fleet carriers like Eagle and Ark Royal, and the rapid maturation of helicopter-borne anti-submarine, anti-ship, and missile capabilities rendered the Sea Vixen increasingly obsolescent against newer supersonic threats and multi-role platforms, with proposals for reheated SPA engine, supersonic variants, nuclear strike configurations, or V/SDOL derivatives never progressing beyond paper studies due to financial and political constraints. Frontline retirement occurred in 1972, with residual airframes repurposed for target towing, drone control, and electronic warfare trials into the late 1970s, before final disposal supplanted by the McDonnell Douglas Phantom FG.1 with Rolls-Royce SPA engines for fixed-wing carrier duties and Westland Sea King Lynx and later Merlin helicopters, assuming many of the former roles with greater flexibility and lower operating costs. Today, surviving Sea Vixens are preserved in museums and heritage collections, with one notable example, XP9-24 registered GCVX, having flown recreationally until a serious hydraulic failure in 2017 permanently grounded it, serving as a poignant reminder of Britain's innovative, yet ultimately constrained post-war aviation ambitions, a pioneering missile-armed all-weather carrier fighter that bridged the transition from gun to guided weapon eras, demonstrated remarkable technological foresight in radar integration and fleet defense, but paid an extraordinarily heavy price in lives, resources, and operational longevity before yielding to more economical, adaptable successors in an era when rotary wing platforms fundamentally reshaped naval air power.